There is a specific kind of horror that doesn't belong in a movie theater or a crime novel. It belongs in the quiet pattern of your own bathroom rug. It belongs in the sound of a dripping faucet while you sit on the cold tile floor at 3 in the morning watching the blue light of a stolen screen wash over the face of the man who promised to grow old with me. The phone didn't belong to a stranger. It was pulled from a hidden cavity behind our medicine cabinet, tucked inside an old cosmetic tin that belonged to my roommate, the woman I called my sister. And when the Face ID lock clicked open in the darkness, the message waiting on the screen destroyed every single memory of my youth. Let me tell you about the absolute stillness that comes when you realize the people you love are just ghosts wearing familiar skin.
My name is Maya. I am 23 years old. If you looked at my social media feed, you would see pictures of a life that felt entirely warm, casual, and safe. I have long, dark, espresso brown hair that falls past my shoulders, vivid green eyes that my father always said could read a room in a single second, and an ordinary apartment in Columbus, Ohio that I spent the last 2 years turning into a sanctuary. I wasn't a corporate executive or a high-end designer. I worked as a graphic illustrator, a quiet profession that allowed me to work from home, look after our space, and believe that the world was inherently good. My fiancé Liam was my high school sweetheart. We had been together since I was 17. He was 25, a high school sports coach with a radiant, easygoing laugh, a strong jaw, and a gentle demeanor that made everyone in our community instantly love him. He was the anchor of my life. He was the man who held me when my mother passed away, the man who built our coffee table with his own hands, and the man who told me every single night that our small, ordinary life was the only empire he ever wanted to rule. Because the cost of living in the city was high, we had a structural arrangement that felt completely natural to us. We shared our 3-bedroom suburban house with Chloe. Chloe was my college best friend. We had met on our first day of orientation, shared a cramped dorm room for 4 years, and navigated the messy transitions of early adulthood together. Chloe was a striking, ambitious brunette with a sharp wit and a chaotic, magnetic energy that perfectly balanced my quiet, introspective nature. When Liam and I got engaged a year ago, Chloe cried harder than my own family. She hugged us both in our living room and said, "You guys are my safety net. I don't know what I'd do without this house." We were an inseparable trio. We didn't have separate lives. We had a single shared existence. We shared the groceries, we split the utilities, we had weekly Sunday movie nights, and every single month we packed our old SUV and went on long, rustic weekend camping trips into the deep woods of Hocking Hills. Those camping trips were the highlight of my routine. We would hike for miles, set up our tents by the fire, and spend the evenings drinking cheap beer and telling stories under the stars. Liam and Chloe always got along beautifully. They had a playful, sibling-like dynamic that I found deeply comforting. Liam would help Chloe pack her hiking gear, and Chloe would tease Liam about his terrible cooking. When Liam stayed late at high school for emergency coaching seminars, Chloe would sit on the kitchen counter with me, helping me print my illustrations, listening to my complaints about the household budget, and reassuring me. "He's working hard for your future, Maya," she would say, her dark eyes shining with total sincerity. "You found a good one. Don't ever let him go." I felt so incredibly lucky. I lived in a house filled with absolute transparency, surrounded by the 2 people who knew the exact geography of my soul. I was completely, utterly blind. I was guarding the front door from enemies while the thieves were already sitting at my kitchen table, eating from my plate. Trust is a beautiful vulnerability, but when it is absolute, it completely paralyzes your survival instincts. You stop looking for signs because you cannot imagine a world where the people holding you are the ones pushing you off the cliff. Have you ever lived with someone and realized that their entire daily kindness was just a calculated distraction? Tell me your thoughts below. The illusion cracked on a completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon in October. The autumn leaves were turning a violent shade of amber, and a cold wind was rattling the bathroom window. Liam had left at 6 a.m. for a 3-day regional tournament in Cleveland with his team. Chloe had also left early that morning, telling me she needed to spend the week at a marketing seminar in Cincinnati. I had decided to use the empty house to deep clean our shared bathroom, the one located between Liam's and Chloe's rooms. I was scrubbing the interior shelves of the medicine cabinet behind the main mirror when I noticed a small irregularity in the back tracking. The plastic molding at the very base of the cabinet didn't line up with the wall anchor. When I pulled on the edge to clean the dust behind it, the entire back panel slid open half an inch. A hidden hollow cavity inside the wall structure was exposed. I reached my hand inside the dark space, my fingers brushing against an old vintage metal cosmetic tin that Chloe hadn't used since college. I pulled it out, sitting on the cold bathroom rug, expecting to find some old jewelry or perhaps some personal journals she wanted to keep private from our shared household. Inside the tin was a secondary smartphone. It was on. The battery icon showed 92%. It was a cheap, prepaid burner phone with a completely blacked-out privacy screen protector. It didn't have a standard carrier profile. It was operating entirely on our home's local Wi-Fi, utilizing a guest network profile that Liam had set up months ago under the pretense of improving the signal for our smart television. I pressed the power button. The lock screen illuminated, displaying a custom alphanumeric password restriction and a Face ID authentication prompt. As I stared at the glass, a push notification banner popped up from an unlisted secure communication application. The sender was saved under a single name, The Anchor. The preview text read, "The hotel in Cleveland is fine, but it's missing the back of the SUV. She thinks I'm at the seminar, so I have the whole evening to track the budget. I'm counting down the hours until Friday." The air in the bathroom turned into solid lead. My mind didn't descend into panic. It froze into a cold, silent operating system. I looked at the timestamp. The message had been transmitted 7 minutes ago. Cleveland, the regional tournament, the seminar in Cincinnati. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together with a violence that made my stomach turn. I didn't throw the device against the tile. I didn't pack my bags. I placed the phone back inside the cosmetic tin, slid the hidden bathroom panel back into place until it was perfectly flush, and walked downstairs to my studio space. I sat at my drawing desk, looking at an unfinished illustration of a happy family, and I realized that my entire adult life had been a meticulously designed lie. I wasn't Liam's fiancé. I was their roommate. I was the convenient, quiet girl who cooked their meals and maintained their domestic cover while they used my home and my trust to facilitate a parallel existence. I spent the next 6 hours sitting in total darkness as the sun set over our suburban street. I didn't text Liam. I didn't call Chloe. I knew that if I exploded now, they would simply unite against me. Liam would use his position to claim I was suffering from psychological paranoia. Chloe would move out, delete the evidence, and they would walk away together, leaving me with the financial debt of the house and the reputation of an unstable woman. When you deal with an infection inside your home, you don't scream at the bacteria. You isolate it, you observe its patterns, and you prepare the exact compound necessary to eradicate it completely. I needed the data inside that phone, and I knew that the Face ID lock had a single, critical vulnerability. It required his face, and he had to return to my bed. The most dangerous weapon in the world is a quiet woman who has stopped caring about her own pain and started focusing entirely on the logistics of an exposure. If you found a burner phone hidden inside your shared bathroom, would you confront them the second they walked through the door, or would you wait in the dark for the perfect moment? Let me know your strategy in the comments. Liam returned from his Cleveland tournament on Friday evening at 7:30 p.m. He walked through the front door, looking vibrant, dropping his gym bag on the floor. He ran his fingers through his dark hair, walked straight over to my desk, and pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my neck. God, it was an exhausting 3 days, Maya, he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. All I could think about was coming back to this house. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Liam, I said. My voice was a perfect, crystal clear simulation of a devoted fiancé. I looked at his eyes, and I felt absolutely nothing. No heartbreak, no warmth, no anger. He was simply a file that I was preparing to archive. Chloe arrived 40 minutes later, carrying a bag of takeout, laughing as she walked into the kitchen. The Cincinnati seminar was so boring, guys, she sighed, hugging me from behind. I'm so glad we have our camping trip next weekend. I need some fresh air. Me too, Chloe, I said, smiling at her. We all need some fresh air. Liam went to bed early that night, claiming his muscles were aching from the travel. By 3:14 a.m., the house was completely wrapped in the suffocating silence of the night. The only sound was the heavy, rhythmic breathing of my fiancé sleeping right next to me. I stood up, making no sound against the floorboards. I walked into the shared bathroom, opened the hidden panel behind the medicine cabinet, and retrieved the burner phone. The screen's cold blue light reflected in my green eyes as I stepped back into the master bedroom. Liam was lying on his side, his face completely exposed in the silver moonlight cutting through our curtains. I leaned over his side of the mattress, my long, dark hair brushing against his shoulder. My hand was a block of stone as I extended the phone, holding it exactly 6 inches away from his sleeping face. For 3 seconds, the display remained locked. Then, the padlock icon at the top of the interface clicked open. Authentication granted. I immediately left the room, walking down to my studio space in the basement, locking the heavy door behind me. I sat at my computer, connected the burner phone via a local wireless bridge, and began the systematic liquidation of their secrets. The message archive was an absolute degradation. The affair hadn't started a few months ago. It had been running for 3 entire years. It had started during our junior year of college, before we even signed the lease on this house. They had systematically planned the room arrangements so that their access to the shared bathroom would allow them to slip into each other's rooms while I was working late on my illustration deadlines downstairs. I opened the image cache. There were hundreds of photos and video logs that rewrote every single memory of my relationship. A photo of Liam and Chloe kissing behind our SUV during our camping trip in Hocking Hills last November. The exact weekend, I was inside the tent, shivering with a fever, while Chloe told me she was going into the woods to gather more firewood. A video of them laughing in a boutique hotel room in Columbus, taken on the specific night Liam told me his car had broken down on the highway and he had to sleep at the high school gym. A series of text messages coordinating how they would manage the household finances. Chloe, she thinks the utility bill went up because of her drawing tablets. She's so easy to manage, Brad. She never checks the master account logs. Liam, just keep her happy until my 30th birthday party next month. My family's transferring the deed of the lake lot to my name as a gift. Once the land is registered under my profile, I'll initiate the breakup. We'll break the lease, and we can take the capital and move to Chicago. She'll be stuck with the illustration contract.
They were utilizing my domestic stability to fund their future. They were waiting for Liam's upcoming 30th birthday celebration, a massive backyard party where his wealthy family was planning to gift him a valuable piece of land, to finalize their exit strategy and leave me with an empty house and a broken life. My fingers moved over the keyboard with a cold, terrifying precision. I didn't delete a single packet. I didn't scream into the dark. I spent the next 3 hours transferring every video, every text conversation, every corporate expense fraud log into a secure triple encrypted storage network. When the validation reached 100%, I walked back upstairs, I placed the phone back inside the cosmetic tin and slid it behind the mirror. I crawled back into bed next to him. He shifted in his sleep, pulling my body against his chest. I lay there in the dark under the weight of his arm, staring at the ceiling, and I realized that data is the only beautiful thing left in this world, because humans change, but a log file remains forever.
When the people you share your daily bread with are systematically calculating the date of your destruction, you don't confront them in a petty screaming match. You wait for the lights to be as bright as possible so that their exposure is definitive. Have you ever had to look into the eyes of someone you knew was a snake and pretend you were still blind just to protect your next strategy? Tell me your story below. Liam's 30th birthday party was the biggest social event of our suburban calendar. His family had spared no expense, transforming our massive backyard into a high-end festival layout with string lights, premium catering stations, and an open bar. Over 100 people were there: his wealthy relatives, our college friends, the high school athletic board, and all of our neighbors. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of expensive barbecue. I walked out of the back patio slightly late. I wasn't wearing my usual casual jeans and t-shirts. I wore a highly provocative, magnificent black silk slip dress that hugged my body like a shadow, my dark hair falling in rich waves, my vivid green eyes cold and brilliant. The second I stepped on the lawn, several conversations stalled. Liam's eyes widened as he immediately walked over, placing his hand on my hip, kissing my cheek in front of his parents. "Maya, you look incredible," he whispered, his eyes scanning my dress. "Everyone is talking about how beautiful my fiancé is." "Thank you, Liam," I said, my voice smooth and dead calm. I looked past his shoulder and met Chloe's eyes. She smiled warmly at me, raising her cocktail glass. "Let's give them something they will never forget tonight," I whispered to him. At 8:30 p.m., the twilight settled over the yard, and the ambient string lights came on. Liam's father took a silver microphone, standing on the central deck, signaling for everyone to gather around the massive 20-foot outdoor projection screen we had set up for the evening. "Tonight, we celebrate 30 years of a wonderful son, a man of integrity, a great coach, and a man who is about to build a beautiful home on the lake lot we're officially transferring to him tonight." The crowd erupted into massive applause. Liam walked up onto the deck, standing under the bright spotlights, his chest puffed out with the supreme confidence of a man who had won the game of life. Chloe stood right at the base of the deck, her face radiant with a triumphant glow. "Thank you, Dad," Liam said into the microphone, his voice deep and emotional. "Before we cut the cake, Maya has curated a special visual presentation, a timeline of my childhood, my coaching career, and the personal memories that brought us all to this backyard tonight. Maya, roll the tape." That was the exact parameter I had programmed. I had walked into the main media terminal inside our living room 5 minutes earlier. The technical setup ran entirely on my design workstation network. The AV assistant outside had no reason to check the media stream when I told Liam wanted a last-minute adjustment to the childhood retrospective slide. I executed the master script. Instead of his childhood baseball pictures or coaching highlights, the 20-foot screen turned a high-contrast, deep midnight blue. A single line of text appeared across the display in massive, clean white typography. The true timeline of Liam and Chloe. The guests frowned. A confused whisper broke out among his relatives. Liam turned around to look at the screen behind him, his jaw tightening as his eyes scanned the text. Looks like we have a synchronization error with the video file." I hit the enter key on my terminal. The display wall split into an absolute high-definition grid of betrayal. The first file to compile was the high-resolution photograph of Liam and Chloe kissing behind our SUV in the Hocking Hills woods, while the metadata on the side explicitly displayed the timestamp from the exact weekend I was sick inside the tent. The entire backyard plummeted into a terrifying, frozen silence. The music stopped. Liam's microphone emitted a sharp, screeching static sound as his hand began to tremble uncontrollably against his side. "Shut it down! Turn the power off! Maya, what the hell is this?" he screamed toward the house, his face turning an ash gray under the party lights. But the network loop was locked. I had disabled the manual override switches from my core terminal. The screen transitioned. The video of them inside the Columbus boutique hotel room came alive, their voices echoing through the backyard speakers for his parents, his boss, and his friends to hear. And then the final execution code deployed. The rows of their secret burner phone messages began scrolling down the screen in massive, undeniable font. "Chloe, she thinks the utility bill went up because of her drawing tablets. She's so easy to manage." "Liam, just keep her happy until my birthday. Once the land is registered under my profile, I'll initiate the breakup." The over 100 guests began gasping, several of Liam's relatives covering their mouths in horror. Liam's mother dropped her glass, the crystals shattering against the stone patio. Chloe stood completely paralyzed in the middle of the lawn, her summer dress looking entirely pathetic as our college friends moved away from her like she was a biological hazard. I stepped out of the back patio doors, walking slowly down the wooden steps into the yard, the black silk of my dress catching the dim light of the evening. I stood right at the edge of the deck, looking up at my fiancé under the flashing neon light of his own exposed life. "The system has been completely audited, Liam," my voice cutting through the quiet yard without any need for amplification. Liam's father stepped onto the deck, his face distorted with absolute shame and fury. He looked at his son, then at his lawyer who was sitting at the front table. "The land transfer is void. The party is over. Get your things and leave this property immediately." Two of Liam's own coaching colleagues walked up, grabbing him by the arms and pulling him off the deck as his arrogant mask completely dissolved into tears. Chloe ran toward the side gate, sobbing hysterically as our neighbors began taking out their phones, documenting her exit in real time. Exactly 2 years passed after that night in the backyard. The autumn season had returned, turning the Ohio woods into a cold landscape of falling leaves and gray skies. My life didn't end in that yard. It underwent a massive, high-performance optimization loop. Liam was dismissed from his coaching position within 2 weeks after the school board reviewed the public scandal and the financial irregularities regarding his travel expenses. His family completely cut him off, refusing to validate his existence or provide a single dollar of capital. My legal team used the financial fraud tracking logs to completely break our lease structure, forcing Liam and Chloe to assume 100% of the financial damages of the property, while I walked away with my credit score completely immaculate. I moved into a beautiful, historic loft apartment in downtown Chicago, a city where nobody knew my past, but everyone quickly learned my name. I used my illustration success to launch Vance Creative Media, an independent digital agency that grew to a massive scale within 18 months. I became the sole designer of my own destiny. One Tuesday afternoon, a cold rain was beating against the massive industrial windows of my Chicago studio. I was sitting at my drawing terminal reviewing our quarterly revenue maps when my office manager pushed open the door, looking highly uncertain. "Miss Maya," she said quietly, "there is a woman downstairs in the main lobby. She doesn't have an appointment, her clothes are completely soaked from the rain, and she's crying, refusing to leave until she speaks with you. She claims she used to live with you. Her name is Chloe Miller." I looked at the cold rain washing over the city streets below. "Send her up," I said. When the elevator doors initialized and opened, Chloe stepped into my space. The transformation was total, absolute, and entirely logical. The confident, attractive woman in the summer dress was completely gone, crushed under the weight of her own output parameters. Her dark hair was brittle, unwashed, and dripping with rain. She wore a cheap, thin jacket that offered no protection from the wind, her hands raw and chapped, stuffed deep into her pockets to hide her intense trembling. She didn't dare step onto the clean concrete floor of my studio. She stood near the threshold of the room, looking at my massive mahogany desk with eyes that were hollow and completely broken. "Maya," she whispered. Her voice was thin, cracked, completely stripped of that sharp wit she used to use when she lied to me across our kitchen counter. Thank you for letting me up." "You have exactly 2 minutes, Chloe," I said, my voice completely flat, devoid of any hatred or anger. I didn't close the vector illustration I was modifying on my main screen. "Make your argument logical." "Liam is gone," she sobbed, a dark streak of running makeup cutting down her pale face. "After the party, everything fell apart. He couldn't get a job, he started drinking, and he blamed me for everything. He left for Florida months ago and left me with the remaining lease debt. The collection agencies, they've sued me. I can't rent an apartment, I can't find a job in marketing because my name is completely ruined on Google, and I'm looking at an eviction notice next week." I leaned back in my executive chair, lacing my fingers together with a calm, deliberate slowness. "And that's an equation that requires my processing power? Because if you sign a simple non-disclosure waiver, if you tell the collection agency that the household fraud was entirely Liam's initiation, they will remove my name from the legal judgment." She cried out, dropping to her knees right at the entrance of my office. "Maya, please, we were best friends for 4 years. We were sisters. You know I was stupid. You know he manipulated me too. He told me he was stuck with you because of the lease." I stood up from my desk. The smooth black silk of my dress moved around my body like a shadow as I walked slowly over to the panoramic window, looking down at the rainy metropolis below. "The data was compiled and locked 2 years ago, Chloe," I said, not turning back to look at her. "I do not rewrite history to protect my friends, and I do not delete history to punish my enemies. I simply allow the platform to output the exact reality of the variables you chose to input into the system. You chose to log in to that burner phone behind my mirror. You chose to sit on my couch and look at my face while you planned my financial ruin. Enjoy the final compilation of your choices." She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She slowly realized that there was no human emotion left in the room for her to manipulate. She stepped backwards into the elevator enclosure, and the glass doors slid shut between us with a silent, heavy hum. Liam remains completely broke, working an unstable retail job in a small town in Florida. Chloe filed for personal bankruptcy 3 months later and moved back into her parents' basement, her professional reputation permanently corrupted. Their names are just 2 broken lines of code in the vast history of the city. Do you know why I am telling you this story from the absolute peak of my own independent empire? Because the world wants you to believe that when an actry of betrayal occurs inside your home, you are supposed to scream, cry on the kitchen floor, and let your broken heart destroy your dignity. They want you to believe that your loyalty makes you a victim, that a lying partner can permanently reduce your value. but they don't understand the absolute, unalterable laws of data. Your life is an operating system, and sometimes finding that hidden, secret burner phone behind your bathroom mirror is the only way the platform can force a total, mandatory hard reboot of your reality. It forces you to purge the toxic users. It forces you to delete the parasites that have been draining your power while you smiled. Liam and Chloe thought they could build a paradise of gold using my silence as their foundation. They forgot the most basic rule of a closed system. The person who cleans the mirror always sees what is hidden behind the glass. I am Maya. The ledger is audited, the balance is zero, and my life finally runs entirely on my own terms. Now I have a final question for you, the person sitting in the dark right now, listening to the sound of my voice. If you found a secret, encrypted phone hidden deep inside your home today, would you confront them instantly in a storm of useless emotion? Or would you wait patiently for the dark to use their own sleeping face to unlock the ultimate truth? Tell me your strategy in the comments below. I am reading and I am watching your logic.